My grandson Joe is doing the last minute checks and preparations on his boat before we launch it in to the briny waters of Yaquina Bay on our halibut fishing trip out on the Pacific Ocean. We have enough fuel aboard and plenty of time, and so we're going to run several miles offshore out to where it's deep enough water that the deep swimming halibut will be. Yaquina Bay has a reputation of being one of the nicer harbors to go in and out. It's got good jetties, so it's pretty calm waters and a nice bar to cross. Yaquina Bay is the closest spot that we can put out to sea to get to the spot where we want to go for the halibut. They're not just any place. They have to be around a reef or something, only they don't stay on the reef. They stay out in the sand on the outside of the reef. There will be just the three of us going, Joe, myself, and a friend named Robbie, a longtime friend of Joe's. This is a private marina, and we notice a funny looking thing sitting on the edge of the dock, and we're trying to figure out what it was, and then the guy spoke up and said, that's a cage to hold sea urchins.
So we'll be out fishing in just a little bit.
He likes to eat sea urchins, so he goes out and catches a bunch and puts in there and then just lets it down into the bay, and when he wants a sea urchin, he just goes and pulls it out and eats them. And I don't know how they fix them. He says they're sure good eating though, but I think I could find something better than a sea urchin to eat. Joe has the boat launched in to the briny waters of Yaquina Bay, and the motors are already warmed up, so we're going to get in and head out. The calm waters of Yaquina Bay are very gently lapping against the side of our boat as we get out into open water where we can make a little bit of time. We are carefully heading west through the calm waters of Yaquina Bay, making a beeline for the halibut fishing hole. We're making really good time slicing through the waters of Yaquina Bay as Joe skillfully steers us right out toward the open ocean. And we're hoping the bar is going to be flat calm today, so we don't have to worry about that. There's not much like the sound of a well-tuned engine as you're heading to sea out between. We'll be out to Yaquina Bay Bridge pretty soon, and what a sight. There we first get our first glimpse of it. The old Yaquina Bay Bridge is standing tall as usual right ahead of us, and there's a lot of fishing boats have seen this sight throughout the year. I've seen this sight numerous times myself since I used to have a small fishing boat myself. And also, I made a trip out in a commercial crab boat for about a week at sea. Right under the bridge and out at sea we'd go. The calm, predictable manner of the bar is owed by the jetties that are man-made jetties that are sticking out to sea, and Yaquina Bay has the reputation of being one of the bars to cross. The commercial boat ahead of us is probably a little bit similar to the one I used to work on so many years ago. We approach the bar, it looks fine, and we have more speed than the commercial boat because we don't sit so deep in the water, and so we'll overtaking, and we're just about on Yaquina Bay Bar, and it looks just fine. The water's smooth, the fishing boat's cutting right through it, and we overtaking right before we cross the bar. The bar, we're starting to feel a little roll of the ocean right on the bar. But our tide's right and we're hitting it good. The people that spend all their time at sea on the commercial boats don't worry about the ocean. Their boats will take anything the ocean can deal out to them usually. But the bar, that's the place that loses the lives and takes the boats under. So everyone has a good deal of respect for the bar when you cross it. Now that we're over the bar, it looks like it's steady sailing from here on, and it's steady as she goes for about 2 hours run out to sea where the water's deep enough and the spot is right for the halibut. For the commercial fishermen, the sea is the only life they know. They were maybe some of them brought to sea as an infant in a bassinet, and so they've spent their whole life out here and they love it, and that's all their conversations and everything deal with the sea. The shoreline dims as we move at a decent pace at sea. We could go a little faster, but there's a little chop that's hammering kind of bad, so we have to keep it down a little as we steady on the spot where we're going to fish halibut. There are a few clouds hanging on the horizon, but nothing to worry about, and we have almost no wind for the ocean as we look back towards shore going at a decent pace. So let's just sit back and enjoy the ride, and we'll be to the halibut area for long. Joe takes instrument readings, and we found that we are to the spot where we're going to fish. First, we have to put enough lead on to sink that bait down to where the halibut can see it, since we're in super deep water and there are some currents down there running that you need a lot of weight. We're using some frozen herring for bait. We just put a lot of lead on, stick the frozen herring on a hook, tie it on a little bit, and lower it down about 200 feet. Joe holds up the baited hooks that we're going to be sending down to feed to the halibut. It takes a little while to reach the bottom to where the deep swimming halibut are. A lot of times they just lay with their bodies buried under the sand and just their head and eyes sticking out of the sand. So if a bait comes by, they won't even see it. They can rush up and grab it. We have another hook all baited up, and it's ready to go in. And this one's on the regular old crank reel, but that's all right. Just crank on it a while, and it comes up too. Not quite as fancy as the modern electric, but it works. We let the hook down till it touches the bottom. Then we wind it up just a few feet off the bottom and set it in the holder, and then we just drift. So we have the quiet of the ocean out here, and we're the only ones in this area. And so when Joe's feeling the bottom, and there it is, and then he'll lift it up a little bit, and wow, a fish hits instantly. And then he goes away only to come back and hit again and again. But he just doesn't seem to be committing to that bait. But we'll just leave him to his means, and pretty soon he'll try it again and again. This is about as exciting as you can get. You never really know what's going to bite down there. There's some fairly small ones and some absolute monsters there. And so we always hope to get a hold of one of the big old monsters and crank him up from the bottom of the salty sea. The last 3 fishing trips I've been on and tried to film, I've had camera difficulty every time, so I have to end the videos before I want. So today is no exception. Although I brought 3 cameras, but I don't have really good cameras. I'm just using cheap old second-hand ones, and so I brought 3. I thought, wow, I'll be in good shape with that. But I didn't realize what was going to be ahead of me. First one quit, and I switched to the other, and it quit almost instantly. And so I switched to the other, and I got just a little bit of not too good of footage, but I'm going to put it on here pretty soon anyway, since I have nothing else. And I missed a lot of things. Some porpoise came by and put on a show for us. Some sharks came by, and also we could see salmon swimming around the boat. And a great huge sunfish came by with one of his big fins sticking out of the water, and no camera to photograph him. So that means I'll have to go out again, but we'll make the best out of what we got. And that fish just won't leave Joe's line alone. He just keeps messing with it. Maybe if he messes around long enough, he'll get himself hooked. It would certainly be interesting to see what there is down at these depths, but it's a way too deep to see, and it would even be too deep for a scuba diver. But we're checking our bait all the time. Joe's gonna put a new bait on mine, so I'll be ready to go, and back down again it goes. There's just enough movement to the ocean to give this bait some life, and so we'll just let it rock and roll here and let the ocean do the work. At least we're very fortunate that the wind isn't coming up, but just a gentle little ocean breeze as we move along, following in an ocean current. And when one of those fish bites, you'll know it. That pole starts dancing up and down. There's a certain amount of movement with the ocean, but when one bites, it's a different story. Joe keeps having one pester on his pole with the manual reel, and so he just keeps at it, and pretty soon he'll catch something. We just drift a little ways in the current and for an hour or so, and then we'll start the motor up and run back and let them down again and try it through another spot sometimes if there's not much biting there. We have to occasionally adjust the depth of the reel, so we'll be down on the bottom, because the bottom varies a little bit, although very little, because we're trying to fish in the sand, where the halibut can just go down and bury himself in the sand except for his eyes. And then when a bait fish comes by, he can grab him without it even seeing him. Coming from Montana, the first time I saw a halibut and a sole and a flounder, I couldn't believe they have a dark side and a light side and both eyes on the same side. They're a very interesting fish. They look like something from outer space. Joe keeps getting bites on the manual crank reel here, and so he'll reel it up and see if the bait's there or if there's a fish on it or what. That fish is making his day. Pestering Joe. He just keeps biting but doesn't commit completely. But that's fine. It's exciting either way. And then when you get one on, you have to crank him up from the bottom of the ocean all the way up.
I guess I just need to let him eat it. I think I probably lost it because I was trying to set the hook on him.
Yeah.
Some days that
When
works
we're
really
fishing
good, some
so
days it
deep
don't.
in these currents, it takes a lot of lead to carry that bait down to where the fish are swimming. Joe's gonna let me use his new electric reel, and I've never used one before, so I'm anxious to get a halibut on and just see what it's like. The last 3 times I've been fishing, I just get in the fishing and start catching them, and my camera goes out. And so this is no exception, only this time I brought along 3 cameras, and within a little bit, 2 of them have stopped working, and the other one is just very marginal. So I didn't get the pictures I wanted, but I got some, and I'm grateful for. I've been using second-hand cameras that we use ones we buy that just aren't reliable. So I guess I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and look around and see what I can find in a camera. I sure like these little cameras that I've been getting. If it wasn't, they just aren't real. If anyone's watching this that knows of a good, reliable camera, put it in the comments, and I'd like to look and see what I can find in there. I've looked some, and I was thinking of a GoPro, but I'm not sure it would have the telephoto zoom that I really need for a lot of my pictures, and I'm not sure a GoPro would be right, but I would certainly look. Sure is a nice, easy way to fish. The ocean is doing the work for us, and all we have to do is occasionally adjust our reels and pull the fish in. And with these automatic electric reels, you just turn it on and it'll fight the fish for you. Wow, technology's gone a long ways on this fishing thing.
Yeah.
And finally, it looks like I caught a sole, a nice sole, which are excellent eating, and they're just like a halibut. They have both eyes on the same side of their head, and a light side and a dark side. I expect that light side seldom ever gets to see the light of day. Well, probably they don't see much light down at 200 feet deep, and I don't know whether they ever move from there or just hang out at that depth. Maybe it's pretty comfortable for them down there. But anyway, this is an excellent eating fish. We get the fish off and get the hook back in the water, ready for another one. The boat bobs along, as we can see the horizon out there, and a nice gentle swell rocking us along out here as we move right along in the current. And we watch the poles intensely as we bob along in a gentle rolling swell. Joe keeps having something, keeps biting on his manual reel here, and every time he goes to pull it in, there's nothing there. But then he'll pull it up after a bit and find that the herring has been bitten quite a little bit. So I guess it's just a matter of time till one commits to the bait. There he is, biting again. Joe thinks he's got him this time, so he'll crank him up, which will take a little bit of manpower and a little while to crank him the 200 feet up from the bottom of the ocean. The fish has got a lot of time to figure out a way to get away from him when he's coming up from so deep, but if he's hooked good, all will go well. One crank after another as the fish gets closer and closer to the surface. There are many other species of fish here since we're near the reef, and the halibut, I think they go on the reefs to feed some, but they like to lay right out in the sand out in front of them, just lay there and sleep. But these other fish are out there sometimes feeding too, particularly if there's a school of bait fish goes by. They'll move out a little ways and feed, and then go back and rest in the protection of the reefs. It seems like that fish must be on, and he was. It's one of the yellow-eyed reef fish, and it's illegal to keep any of them, so we have to hook him on a little device and lower him back down. So all we have to do is just hook this device on the lip of that fish and lower him back down to where he's hits the bottom, and then it automatically releases him, and on the way down, when he hits the pressure, probably that airbag in his eyes went back into the spot where they should be, and we've never seen one come floating up. But if you were to release one on the surface, he would just lay there and float and die. So we don't want that to happen. See the bait come drifting by.
We're letting those yellow.
And you just hook that on him, and when he gets down deep enough,
Yeah, let's go.
We'll make a drift just at the totally at the mercy of the currents, and then when we get done with that drift, then we'll pull up everything and move on and start another drift, and it seems to work because we're getting bites all the time. Sure is peaceful out here. No one else around, and we've got the motor shut off and we're just drifting. So the only sounds we hear are the slapping of the water against the hull of the boat as we drift around. and then pretty soon somebody will say, I've got one. There's one keeps playing with Joe's hook. Sometimes he'll get him up a little bit and then he'll let go. But maybe he's got one this time, and he's very carefully reeling him up. And that takes a while to reel one up from clear down a couple 100 feet deep. This time it's just another one of those yellow-eyed rockfish. So we hook him to the device with a bunch of lead on the device, drop him over the side, and gently lower him back down to where he came up from the first place. And when he gets down to where he belongs, then the thing releases and his air bladder and eyes have gone back to where they belong, and so he swims off to grow up and bite again. The beauty of fishing out here, you never really know what you're going to catch, and there's some very pretty colored fish out here next to the reef. And there's another fish chose to bite. The pole goes dancing and bouncing along, so we're going to have to pull it up and see just exactly what's on it. Those electric reels crank and grind away as they fight the fish toward the surface, and when the fish gets to pulling too hard, the reel sort of stops for a little bit, and then you have to restart it manually. But it's coming up slow but sure with that pole bent pretty good. It must be a good one coming up. You never really know what you're going to get down here, but whatever it is, it's going to be interesting and exciting when we get it to the surface. You can hardly wait to get it up to where you can see what it's going to be. Then suddenly, there he is, our first halibut of the trip, and he looks like he'll be a good one for eating. So that's what we were out here after, and we finally caught one. The halibut fishing has dropped off somewhat now, but there's still some out here. Most people are starting to go after salmon and other types of fish, and even tuna some.